But on the line right now to talk about the Bridgegate verdict that came out earlier today is Sliwa and Adubato, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster on both the PBS flagship WNET and NJTV, and author of the new book, Lessons in Leadership. Welcome back to the Drive Home at 5, Steve.
Always good to join you, Curtis. And first of all, to the officers, our brave officers in blue, once again targeted. We need to find out what happened, but again, there are no words to describe the tragedy that has just happened in New York.
And I might add another story we may not be able to get to in your own hometown of Newark, where the police were involved in a shootout and cops were shot earlier today.
Once again, we need to always respect and appreciate and understand what they face every day. They put their lives on the line.
Now, Steve, you seem to know so many of those people who have been involved in the Chris Christie administration over the years. Did you know anything about the two found guilty earlier today, Bridget Ann Kelly and Bill Baroni?
Well, let me just say this about Bill Baroni. He was a former, this is the irony of Bill Baroni, a former member of the Senate, not just a member of the Senate, Curtis, but one of the smartest, very young, in his 30s, member of the Senate, an up-and-coming superstar, a lawyer, one of the brightest members of the Judiciary Committee there, someone I interviewed many times on public broadcasting, did a feature on this guy. Believe it or not, Curtis, I did a feature on this guy as one of the most ethical senators who understood the law, who understood how to do it right, was a role model for so many. I am stunned on so many levels. Confused, disappointed. It is one of the most tragic and sad days, not just for government and the political system in the state of New Jersey, but for all of us who call New Jersey our home. Another black mark, a very ugly black mark for the so-called great state of New Jersey.
No, for sure. And now the cooperating witness, David Wildstein, who had befriended Chris Christie back in high school. He also was on the Port Authority. Did you know him at all?
You know, I didn't know that I knew him. That's how weird this is. This is a guy who went by a different name. This is a guy who ran a very well-known and established website, a political website at the time called Politicker NJ, but he went by the name Wally Edge, a former governor, political figure in the state of New Jersey. He went by that moniker, and people used to wonder who was Wally Edge. You used to get these tips, Curtis, and people used to reach out for Wally Edge, but people would ask, who is Wally Edge? Wally Edge was, in fact, this character, David Wildstein, who was always looking to try to be a player politically. This is a weirdo, a character who at one point in a political campaign he actually stole, Curtis, from the late Senator Frank Lautenberg's jacket before a debate, or at a political event, so he had no jacket to wear, and was proud of it and bragged about it. He was a freak, a weirdo, a wannabe, and clearly did whatever he needed to do to get into the good graces of the Christie administration. Deserved what he got.
Now, during this long trial, I found the most compelling testimony to be by the hostile witness. He didn't want to be there. He was compelled to be there by subpoena, by Michael DuHaime, who had originally been campaign manager for the failed Chris Christie attempt possibly to become the Republican nominee for the presidency. He had piloted Rudy Giuliani's failed attempt to win the Republican nomination to become the Republican presidential candidate. And he was the brother of Debbie DuHaime, who used to do traffic here for us at WABC. And he said clearly that the governor, Chris Christie, knew about Bridgegate before it took place.
Look, Mike's a friend. I'll fully disclose. Mike is a friend. Debbie is a friend. You've known Debbie for years. I've worked with Debbie. In all candor, Mike has been someone I've known a long time.
Yes.
He was compelled to testify. And he testified as he believes, truthfully. And I can't imagine any of that was easy for him, and clearly he has been one of the governor's most trusted political advisors. I don't know what the situation is now. I have not spoken to any of those folks in a while, but this has got to be one of the most difficult, awkward, uncomfortable situations for a lot of those players.
While this all transpired earlier today, we see Governor Christie. He's off to Pennsylvania, New Hampshire to campaign for Trump. claiming, in his letter that he issued, hey, I had no knowledge of this. All
He's been
fingers.
Consistent, Curtis.
I know,
Consistent.
but both the prosecution and both defense attorneys kept bringing him up throughout this trial. If I were a juror hearing all this testimony, I would have said, what the hell am I listening to testimony about Baroni and Kelly for? All fingers are pointing towards Chris Christie, the governor, being culpable for this.
Curtis, I listened to the U.S. Attorney Paul Fishman, who I've known a long time. I've interviewed many times, and I have great respect for. And he was asked that question, and he answered very directly. And people really need to understand this, because this isn't about political innuendo. It's not about who you like or don't like. He said, look, I brought the case. We, the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey, brought the case against those who we thought we could prosecute, because we thought we had the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt to prosecute and ultimately get a conviction for. That is it. That's what he did. And that's the determination he made.
No, I understand that. But how does somebody like Chris Christie stand alone, away from all of his former confidants, people who are close to him, not just Bridget and Kelly, Bill Baroni, Michael DuHaime, others who came to testify and basically said he knew about this in advance? How does he suddenly look at himself in the mirror knowing that it's because of me these people are going to jail?
Curtis, you and I have known each other a long time, and I've always tried to play straight with you. I am not going to try to get inside of the governor's head on this. The governor said in a few days that he will ultimately go public and talk about the innuendo and talk about what he said were the inaccuracies in this trial, the inaccuracies in the media reporting. And I will say this. The governor has a tremendous test in front of him for him to try to talk about this and clarify it and make sense of it. And it's going to go well beyond him saying, basically, I said what I was going to say and that I was right and I knew nothing about this. He's going to have to go beyond that, because he's going to be asked directly. He knows, look, he doesn't need me to say this. He knows it. He's going to be asked directly, what about this person who's been a long time?
You know what I'll do? You know what I'll do, Steve? And I never do this unless I'm in the hospital on a morphine trip and near death. I will turn this hour over to you, Steve Adubato, if you could get the governor to come in on a one-on-one discussion on this subject, because I know he's not going to show up for me. And God forbid if Trump becomes president and he becomes attorney general, I won't have a choice, but I'll end up in federal prison somewhere. So I'd be more than happy to turn over the microphone, one-on-one discussion that you could have with the governor right here on the drive home at 5.
Curtis, listen, I would love to have the governor come on and talk about this, but here's the reality, and I'm not trying to duck this at all. The reality is the state of New Jersey has been paralyzed, has been, not going to say blackmailed, but I'm going to say we've been hamstrung to deal with so many other issues in the state because of this trial. Virtually nothing has gone on in the state that needs to go on. And while the governor will hold whatever press conference he needs to hold and answer very tough questions, one hopes, I will say this. The business of the state needs to move forward. The problems of the state are serious. And while Bridgegate needed and needs to be resolved, I will say this. It is not the only issue in this state. And this prosecution, these convictions, and I'm sure there clearly is going to be an appeal, that's part of it. That is not the only issue in the state. It's an embarrassing black mark. Christie will hold a press conference. The business of the state moves forward.